Greetings, diners, and a welcome to another edition of The Cooking Zone, here on the Doomstead Diner. This morning, we are getting back to the roots of The Cooking Zone and Snap Card Gourmet and my general interest in cooking overall as a part of the collapse, understanding collapse and preparing for collapse. With that in mind, I'm starting with breakfast, and our breakfast this morning is going to meet the Snap Card principles of being cheap and nutritious and affordable on a Snap Card budget of $5 a day, and easy to prepare on simple apparatus that you can use in a Bugout machine or in a Bates Motel or in even a public shelter in the case of disaster. And the one that I generally use is the one you see here, which is the electric hot plate. Okay, so we're going to have a really good breakfast this morning. Trust me, folks. And we're going to start with something that I don't usually start with. Well, I often start with this, actually. And that's Alaskan Glacial spring water, the best water in the world. And will be with us here in Alaska for a good while to come. The glaciers are not going to melt off all that fast. So we're going to need some water for this meal. And as you can see, it's going into a camping style cooking mug that comes from a kind of a mess kit, a fairly a substantial mess kit, but a good one in the sense of a Bugout type situation with a Bugout machine. It's not something you'd want to carry in a backpack. It's a little big for that. But you could. Depends on how your backpack arrangement is set up. And I'll go into that at a future date. But at any rate. So it's being done in this container. The water is being heated. And it's very lightweight stuff. And good for boiling water. It's not good for a lot of other type of cooking. But boiling water, it does fine. And what's going to go in that water, or actually, in this case, what's that water going to go into? Well, it's something that I haven't used before in any of my cooking shows, breakfast or otherwise, and that is oatmeal. Oatmeal, see? Oatmeal. And this is cinnamon and spice oatmeal, the generic type, not Quaker Oats. And it is sort of the original Bugout food, camping food. I never went on a camping trip without, like, you know, a dozen packages of these things. In my day, of course, there weren't generic versions available. There were only the Quaker Oats versions. But now you can get cheaper knockoff versions from the various store brands. And this is one of those. And a packet of these, you get 10 to a pack, assorted varieties. Cinnamon spice, raisin and spice, and I don't know, apple, walnut, something. And you know, they're all good. And it's, in my viewpoint, preferable to plain oats, which I feel like a horse. I'm eating plain oats. So, you know. But, you know, if you prefer plain oats, the nutritional value is about the same. I like the flavored oats just in case I don't have anything to add to the oats after I get them cooked up. which I'm about to do because this water is almost ready to boil. And so when it does boil, it's going to get poured in to the bowl with the oats, and I'll make a nice little bowl of oats, to eat. And we'll spruce it up, too, and that'll come later. Because even though I want this meal to be within Snap Card budget and so forth, I'm going to provide examples here of how you can spruce up the food that is very basic and very cheap with stuff that will really improve the flavor and improve your eating experience. You won't feel so horrible being stuck out on the road, some parking lot. Well, you might not have electricity in a parking lot, so you'd have to use your propane or Caro stoves in that situation. But in many situations, you could be pretty depressed about being homeless and on the road and on the run and just lost your house to a flood or earthquake or wildfire or the many climate disasters that have occurred. Or you might have become unemployed in our economy and got your house foreclosed on. And so now you're living in your van and doing the best you can. Okay, so we're boiling pretty good now. And let's add some hot water to the oats. A little more. And that's probably enough. Okay. And we'll turn down the heat on the water. And the oats, I can get rid of the water here for now because it's making noise. And the hot plate is still hot even though it's off. I will let the oats and the water sit for a while so the oats absorb the water, and we'll eat it together with the rest of the meal. Okay, just let it go there. All right, and the next part of the meal, something I've done before on the diner, on the cooking zone. Well, I don't think I called it the cooking zone at the time, but I did do this meal, or this preparation, I should say. It's not a meal by itself, really. You need some other stuff, which is a 1 egg omelet. So we're going to get to the 1 egg omelet now, and that should just take a couple of minutes to prepare. All right, the second part of the meal, or well, it'll be all plated up sort of together, so it's not like courses, it's just part of the meal, is the egg. And I choose to use just 1 egg for a few reasons. 1, it's cheaper. 2, with all the rest of the stuff that's going in this meal, there is enough that you don't really need 2 eggs. And for me, a dozen eggs a week of one type or another is enough. So you start going to 2 eggs all the time, and then you're going to go over your dozen. So I try to keep it down to that. And in this case, I didn't buy a dozen eggs. I bought 18 because the price was cheaper by the egg. It came in at $3 for the 18, so it's less than 20 cents an egg, 17 cents or something like that, I guess. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add the egg to it. And there's the egg, and it's actually a mixture with some half and half, okay, which adds richness to your egg, and it also adds fat, which is a great source of energy. And in my opinion, it makes your egg delicious, or your omelet delicious. And if you notice, the egg is not like immediately bubbling and whatnot. That's because I cook my omelets fairly low and slow, because I like them to be consistent throughout and not get too brown and develop too much of a skin on the outside. So I'll move around the egg as it's cooking so that new egg goes onto the pan to cook, and we get a fairly even cook throughout as we go along here. And once again, I'm on an electric hot plate, which controlling the heat is a bear, and it's starting to get a little hotter than I want it for the low and slow cook, but not too bad as of yet. Okay, and now we'll add our cheese to the mix, and we're going to use some sharp cheddar from Kraft for this, which I love cheddar cheese with my omelet. And the bag they're about, I don't know, $3, is more than the Snap Card budget. But the amount of cheese that I use, I mean, probably get 10 omelets of this type out of that bag of cheese, maybe more. So it's not really above the Snap Card budget. My cheese budget for this guy was 30 cents. Okay, that's not a lot. And the egg was less than 20 cents. And we already did the oh, look at that. That came out pretty good today. That's what I like about cheese omelets. The filling goes in them pretty well. And this is just about ready. Look at that, cheese is all melty and nice onto the plate. Okay, so let me get it over to the plate and put it on there. Turn down the heat. And now all I have to do is plate up the rest of the meal, because all the rest of the foods that are going in this meal, and wow, that's still hot. I'll let that sucker cool down. All the rest of the ingredients or parts of the meal are cold. They're going to come straight out of my cooler in my Bugout machine. And we'll fill out the meal to make it a real, you know, essentially gourmet breakfast that you could get probably at the breakfast buffet of any, you know, decent hotel. And it's something that while you're in your Bugout machine, you can take your mind off collapse for a little bit, and your personal collapse and your personal troubles. So I'll plate it up and come back to consume it, or at least a little of it, before I sign off and finish it. All right, be back in a minute. Okay, our meal is plated up and ready to consume. And before we do consume, though, let's go over what's in it and a little bit of the costs. I'll detail those out in the blog, but just briefly. We started out with the oatmeal, and to that I added a pat of butter. The butter will add extra fat in there and extra flavor, and I use salted butter, which I like. And you can add other stuff too as well. raisins or whatever you want in there. Sometimes when I was a kid, I would add a little milk, but nowadays when I do have it, which isn't very often, I just like it without the milk and just the butter. Okay, so I think I said before about 17 cents for the oatmeal, and probably, I don't know, 5 cents for the pat of butter, maybe. Not very much butter there. Okay, then we have some fruit. Blueberries and raspberries, a couple of my favorites. Okay. Which I have with sour cream, the way my mother used to have it. And I still love that. I have that pretty often for breakfast. And blueberries and raspberries are not cheap most of the year. Sometimes when they're in season, you can get them cheap, but most of the time not so. But I don't use a lot of them in one of these meals. That's pretty small. I'd probably get, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these bowls out of one small 8-ounce container. So I would call it, 50 cents though, and that's by the standards of this meal, that's a lot of money. And it's optional, right? Because I got a lot of other fruit in here. I got an orange, I got a banana. Bananas come in real cheap. They're grapefruit for somebody on a snap card budget. Okay, sour cream. I'm going to use a nice sized dollop of that, but this stuff is cheap. The generic version, $1.70 or so for this whole thing. And God, I'd probably get 20 of these bowls out of one of these. So, I don't know, 10 cents worth of sour cream goes in the meal. The bread, I use nice, freshly baked slice of Italian bread, okay, as opposed to the commercial loaves. It has much more flavor, and it's more delicious, and I slice them as I need them, one at a time, and keep my bread in a plastic Ziploc bag so it stays pretty fresh for about 2 or 3 days. And sometimes, since I am not actually out there in my Bugout machine, I do have a freezer. I'll freeze part of the bread, and then it lasts a whole week easy. Okay, banana, you get these for 89 cents a pound these days, and you get about 4 or 5 bananas per pound. So you're talking less than 20 cents a banana. Call it 15 cents. The cheese omelet, 1 egg, as I mentioned, probably 17 cents, another 5 cents worth of cheese. Not too much. And the clementine oranges, the little baby oranges, these guys, which I really like because they're sweeter than the big navels, and also more in the budget. A big bag of I don't know, a dozen of them cost me $3.50, something like that. I don't know. I'll call it about 30 cents an orange for the meal, and I'll tally all that up later. Okay, before it all gets too cold, I'm going to go ahead and eat some. Let's see how the omelet is first. I've been talking so long that the omelet is not as hot as it could have been when I started, but oh, still good though. One more bite. Oh. Nothing like a cheese omelet for breakfast. And you'll notice another thing about this meal. It's all vegan friendly. Okay? There's no meat, no bacon, no nothing. No sausage. And that saves money. Okay? And it's not necessary for the meal. Plenty of other stuff in there. And you're getting your protein from your egg and cheese. Half and half that's in there. And I'm going to get some more protein and other good fibers and stuff like that from the oatmeal. Have a little of that. Mmm. Well, good flavoring. Not too heavy. I think Americans don't eat enough oatmeal. As grains go, it's probably one of the best for you. And when I do buy commercial bread, and I do, for certain purposes, there's some things it's better for than the Italian breads. Like a peanut butter sandwich, for instance, which is another good cheap meal. So, you know, if you're not eating any oatmeal, add some to your diet. It'll clear out your colon, at the very least. All right, for the rest of the meal, I'm going to eat it off camera. So, I hope you enjoy your breakfast this morning as we proceed down the highway of collapse and the political nonsense continues to rage, both out in the world at large and locally on our own Doomstead Diner, where politics are being debated and conflicted hot and heavy these days inside the diner. So, if you're not faint of heart and have a reasonably thick skin, come and join us on the diner, inside the diner, on the diner forum. It's the place where we discuss the ramifications of collapse in detail, and often there are great insights from all the diners. So, until we meet again next time, this is R.E. on the cooking zone of the Doomstead Diner. Hasta la pasta, baby, or hasta la omelet in this case.